heading into a museum that bills itself as the largest collection of racist artifacts in the United States. There are images in this story that will be difficult to look at, and there are many pieces that we just can't show you on television. But the people who are in charge of this museum tell us that by seeing their exhibits with many relics from the past, we can have better conversations about issues of race and inequality today. The elevator ride down to this Michigan College library basement may be quick, but David Pilgrim hopes when you see what's kept here, it will leave a lasting impact.
What we're trying to show people is just the sheer volume of objects that mocked and belittled African Americans.
David is a sociology professor and the founder of the Jim Crow Museum at Ferris State University. For 40 years, he's collected many of the racist items on display here, from symbols of segregation to caricatures that portray negative stereotypes.
I can teach the lessons I want to teach about Jim Crow, about what it was like to be black growing up in that period, and white, and I can do it by objects.
This museum shows the lasting impact of Jim Crow, a name first given to a black-faced caricature performed by white actors meant to belittle African Americans in the 1800s. It became the term used to describe the era of racial segregation that lasted until the 1960s.
In the museum, we use something called visual thinking strategies, which is we ask a person, what is it you see? At one time in the U.S., whipping posts were legal. Black people and poor people were disproportionately whipped on whipping posts. When I ask people what is it they see, which is I could ask you, what is it you see? Almost everybody sees this little boy, right? And they imagine what he's thinking, watching in a public square someone being whipped.
The power of this museum, David says, is in the debates over the everyday items, ones we may all recognize.
We bring together people from, who have different perspectives. So one group of people look at this and they think, these are the vestiges of enslavement and Jim Crow. And
that's what they used to do. They used to bring all the slaves out when it was a lynching, when it was a beating, when it was a assassination. And they would bring all the slaves out and watch them and let them watch that happen. So it would put fear in their heart so they wouldn't disobey their slave masters. Let's go.
Someone else looks at it and just thinks, this just reminds me of good times that I've spent with my grandparents.
One example he gave me was the debate over the Aunt Jemima breakfast brand, retired in 2021. While popular in so many kitchens, according to historians, she was not a real person. Instead, a caricature based on stereotypes dating back to before the Civil War.
It was a marketing ploy, is all it was. And it worked, right? This associating a black woman with wholesome cooking.
Some might dismiss what's on display here as problems of the past. But David says many of these racist items are still being made and sold today.
There's not a single object in this museum that's not being made right now. Some variation of that object is being made right now.
Are you ever surprised by that?
No, I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed.
Emotion, he says, is part of understanding history.
The purpose of studying the past is to better understand the past. Then we can do stuff when we have that deeper and more nuanced understanding.
Y'all hear that?
But it's not to make you feel better, not to make you feel worse either. It's to teach and learn what really happened
in the past. Exactly.
The museum has a virtual tour online that allows anyone to experience it. Ferris State is in the process of planning a new facility as the museum's collection has grown far beyond the personal one David started as a teenager.
I believe America could still be that city on the top of the hill, but we're not going to be it if we ignore
the racism,
the lessons that we should learn.
An important